All right, welcome into episode 21 of the Y Ball Starters podcast. We're going to deviate a little bit from the Pacific Northwest today to talk about the NBA Finals, which are going to be the Phoenix Suns, and as of today, July 2nd, the Milwaukee Bucks or the Atlanta Hawks. Milwaukee has a 3-2 series lead on Atlanta. Game 6 will be tomorrow, TBD if Trae Young is going to play or if Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to play. Obviously, pretty big deciding factors over there. But the team that's in is the Phoenix Suns. We've got Casey Benson on today, our semi-correspondent. Casey, as a Suns fan, it's got to be pretty exciting.
Absolutely. It's been a long time coming, to say the least. It's been some hard years the last few years, but definitely that's all in the past. And no, it's been great for the city. Honestly, people are excited, and it's been fun just to have basketball. Normal back. Basketball is normal back again, let alone the Suns going to the finals.
Right.
When's the last time the Suns made the finals? Do you know?
I think it was 92.
92. Was that Barkley though?
Yeah, I can't remember who they lost to.
Got to be the Bulls.
I think it was Jordan,
yeah.
actually.
Yep.
I think it was with the Bulls.
That was in John Paxson. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow, that is
so,
forever ago. Holy cow.
Yeah, so it's we've had some had some close calls with Nash and Amari and those guys, but it's definitely an exciting time.
Yeah, it must be nice. What
all us Portland salty fans. We made it in 77 and 90, probably 3.
Yeah, 92, I think. Yeah, 92, 93. What obviously the addition of Chris Paul has made all the difference. They go from 10 straight years of not even making the playoffs to now they're in the finals, possibly going to be the favorite, depending on the health of Giannis, to be frank.
Right.
But what else clicked for this team so well in your guys' mind?
I think just the youth that they've drafted over the last few years and being able to get guys so cheap. Like, I was looking at their salary for all their players earlier today. They've got like Cameron Payne, who's like $1.5 million, something like that. They've got Michael Bridges, who's only $4-something million. Dario Saric, who's even been a role player under 10 million. Jay Crowder, also under 10 mil. So they've just got so many guys who have contributed at such a high level for them. And they're on the cheap. Oh, DeAndre Ayton. How could I even forget that? DeAndre Ayton's under 10 million too. So you've got all these guys who are so good. And then that's not even including Devin Booker and Chris Paul, what they've done for the team this year. They're 2 superstars. And now you've got almost like a budding third one in DeAndre Ayton. They've just put together an amazing roster. And I kind of think that they've gotten a little lucky too with some of their picks, but.
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest difference for me watching them from years past and this year is DeAndre Ayton looks like a star out there. Like, he is able to actually scare people away from the rim on defense, and any lob thrown up towards him, like, he finishes. He honestly, to me, he looks like someone that's about to become like the next like Dwight Howard, the next like great big man. Like, it's weird to say. Considering since he's been picked, it was kind of like a pick because how good Trae Young and Luka Doncic has been. But I mean, we're seeing the number 1 pick now. Like, if they win the finals, it has almost as much to do with him as it does Booker and Paul. Like, he has really shored things up because the defensive side is where, at least to my understanding, is where they've struggled. You can kind of correct me if I'm wrong, Casey, but it feels like Ayton's kind of made some leaps and bounds over this past year and a half or so.
Yeah, without a doubt. No, he's been on. I think I saw where like his shooting percentage, if he like missed his next 20 shots or something like that, he'd still have like the highest shooting percentage ever in a playoff run or something ridiculous. Yeah. Like, it was no, but he's been. I mean, they've all played really, really well, and just the pieces fit together. Like you guys were talking about. And I think obviously. I think a big thing is Monty Williams. He definitely has come in and just changed the whole culture of the team, of the organization. Really, I think obviously, Kendall, you're talking about just different draft or gotten lucky on some picks and stuff, and I think in the last few years they made some pretty poor decisions, to say the least, with other things too. So I think you can kind of see it on both sides how bad you can look and how good you can look. But I think, like I said, I think Monty Williams deserves a ton of credit, and I mean the players play obviously, but just his demeanor and how he approaches and coaches is pretty.
Saying that Dragan Bender wasn't a stud pick.
that was a pretty rough time.
That was pretty tough.
It was him.
We can't forget about Alex Len either.
Oh, that was the other one. Yep.
Is that who? Did they draft them together, or was it Bender and Josh?
Oh.
There was
Who'd
like one
draft with Bender. Yeah, they drafted someone else at like 8 or 9, and then Bender at 4.
Or Marquise Chris, that's who it was.
Yeah,
Yes, that's who it was.
and then Chris was good one year on Golden State too, or something.
Yeah, and then
yeah,
the one year they had Isaiah Thomas, Dragic, and
Bledsoe, right?
Bledsoe and Brandon Knight all at one time.
Yeah, that's right.
It was just like what
What?
And then you get rid of the best ones. You get rid of Dragic and Isaiah Thomas, who go on to. Well, Isaiah Thomas was good for Boston.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, it was.
Yeah, those were rough times.
Yeah, to say the least.
Casey, I'm curious, as a Phoenix native, you don't hear as much about like, oh, the crazy passionate Phoenix fans.
Sure.
Obviously, there's some snowbirds down there, but how does the excitement of a Suns finals run compared to past good Cardinals teams, or even if you can remember back to even when the Diamondbacks were good?
Yeah, no, I would say this definitely. I mean, I think because the Suns have struggled for this last decade so much and turned it around kind of in dramatic fashion.
Mm-hmm.
There is definitely a lot of momentum, to say the least. I went to one of the games against the Lakers. And and let alone too, coming off a time when there was no fans allowed in the, you know what I mean? So it's like kind of all that put into one. They're, I mean, as energized and passionate as ever, in my opinion. And I don't know if that's because it's been so hard to be a fan probably for the last 10 years. So then it's just, I'm sure you got some bandwagon people coming up on board, you know what I mean? But yeah, no, it's definitely been. And the Cardinals, just in comparison to the Cardinals, I'd say people are excited about the Cardinals for sure. They've had some good teams. They're kind of, obviously now they're continuing to get better and better with who they have and stuff. So people are excited. I'd say that this is so real now that they're actually, the Cardinals have had some good seasons. Diamondbacks have struggled. They've been competitive, but no, I'd say this has been pretty. I haven't seen the city this excited about something in a while.
Who do you think
that's the thing though, is that I was just gonna say, that's the thing though, like being a Portland fan, it's like, man, we've been building up for something for the past 12 years. I mean, going back to our Trailblazers, and it takes you guys one season plus like the last 8 games in the bubble to turn everything around.
No,
I've known you guys were going to turn it around. I should have known you guys were going to turn it around when I went to the Phoenix Suns game against Portland last year, and Aaron Baines went off for like 33 points. I'm pretty sure, something like that. Like, it was like a career high game from him. I'm like, okay, that should have been an obvious sign that things were turning around.
Absolutely. No, it's just it is pretty crazy to see how it's just happened so quick. And like I said, I think Monty Williams deserves a lot of credit. Obviously, I mean, Chris Paul this year, but no, it's definitely been pretty crazy.
Do you guys think that the Suns would be in this position if the injuries hadn't happened to some of these other teams? Because personally, like I look at the Lakers, for instance, when Anthony Davis went down, and the Lakers were kind of locking them up. Games 2 and games 3, the Suns were really not playing that great on offense. They were getting really bogged down by Lakers defense. I know game 4, even before Davis went down, the Suns were playing well. But with Chris Paul dealing with that shoulder injury at the time, do you guys think that they would have won? Because I'm not convinced that they would have beaten the Lakers.
I think it's kind of hard to say because LeBron wasn't healthy long before the playoffs. Now, obviously, the Davis injury ended the Lakers, but I mean, LeBron, obviously we make the jokes that like self-admittedly was like, I'm never going to be the same again after one injury. But it was noticeable even I think in the play-in game against Golden State that like the Lakers still won that game. Just because they like Golden State's flaws started to kind of show. But I don't know. I think that's the Suns still would have definitely had a chance in that series because I don't think LeBron had been 100% for a long time.
It's tough to tell too because the game, the Lakers won 1 or 2 games.
Two.
The 2 games they won, Chris Paul didn't play. So I mean, it's tough to tell. It's so hard because like a lot of Phoenix's struggles in that series was when Cameron Payne was starting. And no offense to Cameron Payne, who's played amazing this playoffs, he's just not Chris Paul. So I mean, it's hard to tell because the playoffs have been so wonky. I think honestly, the Suns beat the Clippers with or without Kawhi, and I think they beat Denver with or without Jamal Murray. The Lakers one is the one where I'm like, I think it's a great series fully healthy. I think the Lakers. It's hard for me personally to pick against LeBron James in the playoffs, just seeing what he's done. But I mean, Phoenix is such a well run and like organized team. I mean, we talk about Portland, we like bash on their roster making. Like this Phoenix roster is exactly the type of roster to even outplay their talent. Like they have dudes that just like fit so well. Like Bridges and Crowder together in the front court defensively is so versatile. And they can switch so much with how mobile Ayton is and how much he can get to the perimeter and recover. That I mean, Phoenix is a tough team for anyone, regardless of who they are.
Yeah, without a doubt. No, I definitely agree. I think honestly, I was pretty concerned when they were playing the Lakers, even when LeBron was, or even with him not at 100% or whatever. And if Anthony, and granted they turned it around. I mean, like you said, the game 4 that Davis went down, they still were in control. But I'd say that was the one team I didn't want to play. And obviously they ended up playing well or whatever. But yeah, it would be interesting to see everybody healthy and all that. It would be hard for me to pick against the Lakers, even as a Suns fan. But yeah, the playoffs that way have been so crazy. How many guys have gotten injured, and it's honestly been kind of sad for basketball fans. But yeah. I mean, it's part of the game. But
if it gets Chris Paul a title.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I mean, you win some, you lose some.
Or Trae Young.
Or Trae.
Can you
imagine if Trae Young wins the finals this year? How crazy that would be if the Hawks win the finals.
Yeah. Is he playing tonight?
I saw he's questionable for tomorrow, which is
tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it's tomorrow.
Like tomorrow. That's right. They played last night. I forgot. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I know
it could be an elimination conference finals game between the Lou Williams led Hawks and the Chris Middleton led Bucks. Like that's how crazy this year's been.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's the thing though, is that I think a lot of these injuries, so many people have been talking about, it's because of a condensed schedule and man, Adam Silver really screwed up. Okay, it probably wasn't the smartest idea to compact all the games together in that short of a period for sure. But if you look at so many of these injuries, so many of them have been like freak accidents that have happened, like Kawhi's. Like there's nothing, I don't know, like I'm not a doctor, but I don't think that a shortened season is going to prevent what happened to Kawhi or what happened to Anthony Davis. I don't think a shortened season is going to impact what happened to Anthony Davis. Like he came back quick from a couple other injuries that he had anyways. Right. And then LeBron James rolling his ankle, like a shortened season is going to help him from stepping wrong on somebody else's foot. And like, I just don't think that's going to matter a whole lot.
Yeah. How much shorter they started at like on Christmas.
Yeah. Around
Christmas. And then, but they only got how long was the off season? How much shorter was the off season?
It kind of depends on which team you are, unfortunately. Because the Lakers and Heat had like 2 months, but like teams that didn't make the bubble had like 11 months. Yeah, not 11, like 8 or 9. So it's like kind of depends on what team you are. That's what's so tough is like it's so hard to tell. And then I guess we'll find out next season because it's going to be the same thing where there's almost no off season because they have to get it back on schedule.
Right.
they feel like they have to get it back on schedule.
I mean,
But it's hard to tell because they're playing more games closer together. So I assume they're not as like rested, but I don't know if that makes as much of a difference on the injuries as they say or not. Like playing wise, what do you think, Casey?
That's what I'm trying to figure. Like basically,
Yeah.
There's some validity to it. But also, I mean, like the NBA season is so like they play so many games already. Like to me, I don't know. It's condensed. It's different. Like I get that. Like you're playing more games in a shorter amount of time. But also you're playing a ton of games no matter what. Like an 82 game season is, so it's like, I mean, the whole like load management stuff. I mean, guys take games off anyways, right? Or whatever, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. They played what, 72?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
72
and
the playoffs started like early June. No.
Certain May? When did the playoffs start?
I think it started in May. Yeah.
Okay.
Like so late May.
That sounds right.
Mid late May.
I don't know. Right. I mean, I feel like yes, there's validity to it, but also like you have everything possible to take care of yourself. Like, you know, I mean, I get like all the travel. I mean, like they're traveling a ton. And so, I mean, there is, like I said, there is, but even in a normal season, you're traveling crazy amount. You know what I mean? So
how long was your last season overseas? Like how many games was it?
Well, so it's time wise, it's about, well, between, depending on how long you play, 7 to 9 months. Like,
okay.
But you don't play as many games, but you practice way more. Like,
interesting.
Like we practice. So we would play 1 game a week, and we'd practice twice a day, at least 3 of the weekdays.
Interesting.
Sheesh.
Yeah. So like, I don't know how we didn't have more
practice.
guys tear their ACLs and get hurt and get injured. Because if anybody should have, it should have been dudes on our team. Man, it was like, yeah, my body was tired. So I get it. I mean, like towards the end of the season, I do get it. Yeah. I guess I'm like, I just don't understand. I just don't know how much different it was. Like, is it that significant? It probably. I mean, those guys know better than me. Like, I mean, I've never played an NBA season before, and then had it this way. But like, we don't like our like, and where I was at, we didn't get really any type of recovery or any like treatment and like all that type of stuff that NBA guys get.
Right. It is interesting too, because you could tell this season which teams went all out in the bubble. Like there were effects from it. Like Miami really regressed, and Boston really regressed. Yeah. And the Lakers too had their injuries. Mm-hmm. But I almost wonder if it's mental too. Like they didn't have any mental rest.
Right.
And just getting thrown back into it. Maybe they weren't feeling it as much. COVID was still kind of going when the season started. And now you're throwing the travel, like you mentioned, Casey, on top of it instead of being in the same spot. And they still had to, I know JJ Redick's talked about how like between him getting traded and traveling all the time and all the COVID testing they had to do, he almost never got to see his family this whole season.
Oh.
So you could tell that like he was disappointed that Dallas lost in the first round of the playoffs, but he was injured and he's like, well, now I get to go see my kids.
Right.
So
that would be very difficult.
Yeah. So I wonder how much of it was a mental hurdle as well. But Casey, I'm curious, kind of going back to Phoenix a little bit. What about their style of play or just some of those little intricacies works really well for them that maybe just a casual fan watching on TV wouldn't notice that you've seen?
Man, that's a good question. I would say similar to what we talked about earlier. I just think that they've got guys that play their role to perfection. I mean, obviously not nobody's ever perfect, but like you've got obviously Chris Paul runs the show, and then Devin Booker does his thing, and Ayton's played. So and then you got like Bridges is knocking down shots. Jay Crowder, he's a veteran guy who's playing well. Then off the bench, you've got Cam Johnson's knocking down shots. Like, they're all contributing. Cameron Payne, obviously, is coming in. He gives huge lifts off the bench. And, they just have such a nice blend of different guys that all complement each other really, really well. And then, the catalyst now is Chris Paul. And, you've got Devin Booker's he's still 24 or whatever.
Yeah, something crazy.
It's just, and so that's what's crazy too. They're all they're still so, other than Chris Paul and Crowder. They're all really, really young, which is, so I'd say just how they all mix and complement one another has just been kind of, and they really share the ball and play well together. You know what I mean? They're very, and I think a lot of that has to do with Chris Paul, obviously him being a pure point guard, he just brings that to the table. He's not a how do I put it? He has the ball in his hands a lot, but he just understands. He's a Hall of Famer, so he just understands just tempo and just his poise and just his leadership. It's just, he just brings it all together, really.
How many games do you guys think Pat Bev's going to get suspended for the start of next season?
Hopefully, hopefully 82. Oh my gosh. Probably like 3 or 5, something like that. That was so dirty. Oh my gosh. To pause
weird
and then run up, and then he tweeted that it wasn't meant for Chris Paul. But it's you're caught on video pausing and then running after it. What is happening? Yeah, that was super weird.
I haven't.
But then again, I wasn't surprised.
A lot of times there's I personally, the NBA has gone way overboard with its flagrant fouls.
Yeah.
In one deal, and it just really slows the game down with all the replay reviews. But I can't remember just off the top of my head. I'm sure you guys will remember something too, but I can't remember the last time there was something so blatantly dirty in the NBA by a player to another player. It's been a while.
Yeah. It was honestly, the last time was probably Chris Paul poking Rondo in the eyes. Did you guys see the laugh Chris Paul gave Pat Bev after he pushed him? He was dying laughing. I was so
he knew
funny.
they got into their head. I know that's the funny thing though. That's the funny thing though, is that these players, they'll do stuff like that and then they'll look shocked when it's called on them. I'm like, to Drew's point, there's cameras all over the place. There's thousands of people in the arena watching you and millions of people at home. How are you not going to see that?
Right. Well, what's funny is he talks more trash than anybody. You know what I mean? So it's I don't know what was said or what he was so upset about, but he chirps more than anybody in the NBA. You know what I mean? So it's I was just kind of it was. I saw something funny too where, Chris. So he could talk about Chris Paul having the last lap and the Lakers series. I didn't see it, but when they closed out, I think it must have been the closeout game. There was a picture of him imitating. It was in Game 3 when LeBron was messing around and then Chris Paul was he was kind of acting like he was backing somebody down and doing the same type of thing. It was kind of funny. It
was when LeBron laughed at Crowder, right? He was backing him down, laughing at Crowder. I think I saw that.
So then there's a picture of Chris Paul during a timeout before the Lakers come out of him doing the same type of thing, imitating Andre Drummond was on the bench imitating LeBron. And so they're having they're clowning over there. So then Chris Paul, it was pretty funny actually.
I love it. I saw Rob Perez on Twitter. He follows the NBA. He compared Chris Paul to the killer in the Saw movies because he he said he wields toxicity like a weapon. So he kind of gets under people's skins to get them to do bad what he did to Pat Bev, say something to him to get him to push him. That he wields it as a way. I just thought it was so funny that it was he's the NBA's Jigsaw because he wields toxicity, but he is because he's not being toxic. It's all part of the competitiveness and part of the game. You could tell, but like he does use that to his advantage. Or like when someone just gets like near him, feeling that contact and like throwing his body. Like Chris Paul is just, I mean, he's been playing for so long at such a high level. He is so smart. He's so smart.
It's so funny to me. I don't know if he's just smart or not, like a complete idiot. Maybe a bit of both. But these instances with Pat Bev always come up when he's playing the Steph Currys, Damian Lillards, and the Chris Pauls.
Yeah.
Like the elite of the elite at point guard. Obviously, there was the 1-2-3 Cancun thing in the bubble with Dame. And Dame, there's the past history where Dame hit the shot X amount of years ago, 7 years ago now against Houston. And then I remember there was a game where, I mean, NBA fans kind of rejoiced when this happened because Beverly's kind of universally detested in a way. But there was a game, it was a playoff game against Golden State, and he was just hacking Steph as much as he could, like giving a little poke into the elbows and the ribs and that. Yeah. And Draymond Green just decked him on a screen, and the arena, Oracle just lost it. It was pretty funny.
That was awesome. I love that play. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, kind of looking ahead to the finals. Again, at the time of this recording, we don't know if Milwaukee will get it done against Atlanta, finish him off. The health of Trae Young obviously is going to play a huge role in that. And then looking ahead to the finals. So what are some keys you guys see for a Phoenix victory? Again, there's so many versions of this. There's literally 4 different teams that are going to be playing at this point. They're going to have Milwaukee with Giannis, Milwaukee without Giannis, or Atlanta without Trae, or Atlanta with Trae. So are there like some universal keys that they have to take care of depending on which version?
I think it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see how Phoenix handles, especially if Giannis is back, which we don't know. I would assume that he would be out at least the first couple of games, even though there's no structural damage with a hyperextended knee. How Ayton might handle a longer Bucks team. The Bucks actually have the length and enough bigger guys around to the point where they could slow down some of Ayton's efficiency and take a little more advantage of him than maybe some other teams have in the previous rounds. I mean, Ayton did play really well against Anthony Davis, and Anthony Davis is the closest thing. I know they're 2 completely different players. I understand that, but I think Anthony Davis is probably the closest thing that Ayton's had to Giannis so far. But they also do have Brook Lopez, who's a vet underneath. So it'll be interesting to see how Ayton does against possibly a longer Bucks team. Against the Hawks, he would absolutely feast. Capella has not been that great defensively this playoff.
Yeah, I think honestly, Giannis Bucks are the only team that beats Phoenix, if I'm being honest. I think the way the Hawks have stayed in this playoffs is they're super, super good at hanging around with teams. But Phoenix has showed they don't let teams hang around. Like, if it's a close game, it's because both teams are playing hard. Phoenix, when they can, they put teams away. And I don't think Atlanta would be able to hang, even with Trae Young. I don't think they'd be able to just hang around with Phoenix like they have with Milwaukee and Philadelphia, because those teams will go on long scoring droughts, whereas Phoenix just doesn't. Like, Chris Paul is just way too efficient. I mean, his assist to turnover, just how little he turns the ball over and how much he sets up people. I think Giannis dominating is how they don't win the finals at this point, which is weird to say. I didn't think the Suns would win the finals, but I mean, it's sure looking like it, because I mean, just watching Giannis's injury, the dude can still barely walk. Like, he's standing, but like if you watch him walk, like he is really limping. So, I mean, even if he plays, I don't know how healthy he's really going to be.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if he were healthy, that's definitely a different story.
Yeah.
You know, I think they could beat the Suns for sure. I mean, Atlanta's got. I guess they are in the Eastern Conference Finals. So, but for some reason, I'm just like, they just don't seem very good, you know.
Man, if the Hawks win the finals,
yeah. but you know, it's also like, and obviously, like, they're in the NBA, so they're really, really good. But the East and the West, it's just the West is just so much better. Like, I think like if Suns going through the West, it's like I just think any of those teams would have won the East. like whether it's the Clippers or the Lakers or Denver. I don't see like even Milwaukee, Philly. I don't see any of those teams. None of them are better to me. I just don't. That's my opinion, but so
They're
I would
all
say
inconsistent too. Like Milwaukee is super inconsistent. Like some games they play like awesome, and then some games they're playing a regular season game in the second and third round of the playoffs, and it's like, bro, what are you doing? And like Phoenix, you never see that. Like when they lose, it's not because they came out with no energy, but Philadelphia and Milwaukee are so inconsistent, and Brooklyn was too as well, which kind of speaks to your point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think if Brooklyn would have, I'm saying all these ifs, like if Brooklyn would have been healthy, like their talent wise, I mean, there's nobody more talented in the league, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. I just I'm biased because I'm a West Coast person, but just the West has always been better. Like I've just never thought the East as a whole was better. So I just think that this year, I mean, the Suns having gone through the West, they're kind of a little bit more battle tested, and with all these guys being injured or questionable or whatever, just my personal opinion.
Absolutely.
I agree. Honestly,
honestly, like at this point, we know Giannis is not going to be 100%.
Right.
Even if he does play, I think it's really interesting that if it does end up being Milwaukee, that the teams that lasted, there's so much focus in the NBA now on knocking down threes, which of course both the Suns and Bucks have phenomenal shooters. So that's a huge part of it. But it's the two teams, maybe excluding the injured Lakers, who had the most length defensively. Like in a lot of ways, that's still, I mean, obviously the Suns have a smaller backcourt, but Chris Paul's still a really good defender, and Booker's improved a lot defensively.
Right. Yes.
And Milwaukee's just so lengthy. In the years where Portland still had kind of an outside chance to make the finals, even though it wasn't really that realistic, just to kind of dream a little bit, the three of us would talk about like what kind of like looking at Eastern Conference matchups, and we'd be like, I think we could push Philadelphia. We could push an injured Brooklyn team, but Milwaukee was a team like, their length, they'd sweep Portland. Like their length would just destroy us. But Phoenix can match that a lot better. The Clippers have length too, but I mean, without Kawhi, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the Clippers were really impressive in the playoffs without Kawhi, to be honest. I was stunned. I've never been someone that really believes in the Clippers. And part of that is just I'm not a huge Paul George guy. But he proved me wrong. Paul George was awesome this playoffs. He didn't choke like how he has the past few years. Like, he really stepped up this playoffs, which is weird to say. It sounds weird coming out of my mouth. But, like, he legitimately was really good in the playoffs. And the Clippers they fed on that hate from last year, which is surprising. I didn't think they were going to actually be able to do it. I thought they were going to lose to Dallas, to be honest. So, I mean, I think the Clippers could have come out of the East. I mean, with how inconsistent all of those Eastern Conference teams were, I mean, I think it's possible. I mean, I could see Terrence Mann scoring 39 on like a day Milwaukee doesn't play defense.
I think I kind of agree with Casey. I think there's a lot of teams that would have come out of the East. I think Utah might have come out of the East this year.
Yeah,
with an injured Brooklyn. Utah was really good this year.
Yeah.
Kendall doesn't. Kendall hates Utah, but
Kendall hates Utah, Philadelphia, and Carmelo Anthony.
I feel like that Utah was just like the Hawks of the West, and that's about how the Hawks would do out in the West.
I think they
go out in the second round.
I think the fact that they pushed the Clippers to 6 games when Donovan Mitchell was not healthy speaks a lot. I think the Jazz are considerably better than the Hawks. I think.
They also lost to a Clippers team that was out without Kawhi for the last couple games. So,
but that's what I'm saying. They pushed him to 6 without their best player. And like I'm saying, the Clippers are still the better team, but
yeah,
the other teams in the East fold.
It's tough.
I don't know, man. I don't buy them.
I know you never have, but they were really, really good.
I like Donovan Mitchell.
Me too. That dude's a stud. Oh my gosh.
I also like Mike Conley too.
Yeah, and there's another guy that Utah didn't have healthy. It was Conley.
Yeah.
They needed Conley.
Weird.
They looked awful without him.
didn't he finish the game when they lost to or when they beat, was it Memphis? Didn't he finish that game that he like got hurt in?
Yeah, didn't he? I feel like he did.
I didn't watch that closeout game, so I couldn't tell you either way.
I don't know
But-
why I thought he did.
I don't remember. I feel like he did though. I feel like you're right.
Yeah, it was just weird that he didn't come back at all. Or no,
No.
I'm sorry. He did
Came back in like game
last game.
3 or 4, right?
Did he play
in the
multiple
USA?
games?
Did he? I don't remember, to be honest.
I don't remember
Feels
how
like
many
this playoffs have been
missed.
going on for years now, honestly.
Yeah, I know.
There's
always-
so many injuries. Hard to
Well,
keep
the
track.
playoffs always take forever anyway. Like you think about like the time span between, obviously I'm excluding the bubble, but going back to the 2019 playoffs, the last time we had a true playoffs, like the time difference between Toronto beating Golden State and
Oh
Golden
my
State
gosh.
and like Damian Lillard's game winner over OKC, that was a long time
Yeah,
Right.
between those two moments.
Yeah, that was.
Or even Kawhi's little boing boing boing
Yeah.
shot.
Yeah.
Like that was like 3 weeks after Dame shot, or 2.5 weeks at least.
Yeah, it was. It was something
Yeah.
like that. It was a bit after.
And that was just the next round.
Yeah. They stretch out the
yeah.
playoffs in the NBA. Do you guys think they should shorten the playoffs? Like, do you
No.
think it should?
No,
Or you
it
think
should be
it
the
should be all-
season, if anything. They should
Yeah,
shorten
I
the
think
season if
for
they're
the
going to shorten.
regular season.
We don't need 82 games. Honestly, I think we could shorten it to like 62 and it would be fine. That's a lot, but I mean,
I think it could be like 50, to be honest.
yeah,
I
I don't
really
think we
do.
need 82. That's a lot. Because
Yeah.
then I think what I like least about the NBA regular season is when you have 4 days and 5 nights on the road. Because at home, you're at home. Like, which is obvious, but like there's a huge difference between playing 4 games and 5 nights sleeping in your own bed and 4
Right.
games and 5 nights sleeping in 4 hotels.
right.
Like if we can get
Leaving
away
after
with
the
playing
game.
like
Right.
as like playing a ton of back-to-back like road back-to-backs, I think that's gonna improve a lot of the like injuries and like just mental fatigue for
For
players
sure.
not
That
having
would be-
to like and I don't think fans are gonna care that much if we still have like 50 to 60 games. If we're making sure that if it does work to keep stars healthy, I don't mind, or even just more like resting days. I don't mind as much if it means stars stay healthy.
Even diehard fans, unless they're like in some way paid or obligated to watch every game, don't watch more than 50 games anyway. I don't
Right.
think.
Yeah.
There's so many games.
There's so
You
many
just can't catch
games.
them all.
Yeah.
I think I watched about 2 regular season games this year.
Yeah, I mean, regular season games are hard to
Which-
get up for.
You were in Europe, like
Yeah,
with COVID
true.
and everything too. A little different for you there, but yeah, I think you can 100% shorten it to 50 games, and the players clearly don't care in every regular season game either. They're going to get hurt if they do.
Right.
Or you're going to see Portland, who's really good in the regular season every year, and then by the time they get to the playoffs, they're exhausted because they
Yeah.
pushed in the regular season.
Right.
Yeah, I think you
Yeah.
can. I think that's another way to drum up interest in the regular season too. Just kind of to that point is like, even like the most the most diehard Blazers fans, we're gonna still watch Sunday Night Football over Kings at Blazers game 12 of the year. Like, it's just not
Yeah.
that interesting until
Right.
really the dead of winter.
Yeah.
I think that's a way that NBA could kind of draw a little bit more interest in competing with the NFL. Just because of course I'm going to watch most Seahawks games over most Blazers games, even though I'm a huge Portland fan, just because the Seahawks games matter more.
Well, and at the time they play, it's like the beginning of the season for Portland. So like you really don't
Right.
have much figured out.
Right.
And it's still like those insane basketball fans that watch basketball every single night are still going to watch basketball every single night if it's slightly worse players, because the league is so rich with talent at the moment that like on Houston, you have like Kevin Porter Jr., Christian Wood, John Wall. Like you have like names that are pretty decent, like obviously not comparatively to the other teams, but like even in games where you have nothing play, like nobody's quote unquote playing, you still have a lot of dudes that can really ball.
Right.
Yeah, well, to kind of close this episode out before the finals start, which is still 6 days away. The finals start July 8th. Whether Milwaukee closes it out tomorrow or Monday or what have you, or if Atlanta comes back and wins, of course, too, is still a possibility. But to kind of close this episode out, I'll start with my prediction. I say if Phoenix plays Milwaukee, they beat them in 6 and they beat Atlanta in 5. What are you guys' predictions?
I say sweep Atlanta, Milwaukee in 5.
Okay. Very confident fan.
I was gonna say that's pretty Homer fan.
Suns in 4, guys.
Suns in 4.
Yeah.
Suns in 4. It's
Hey,
tough.
we tried to get him on the pod.
We tried. No response.
That dude, he's got to be a millionaire at this point.
Oh,
if
yeah,
you're
probably.
listening, Suns and 4 guy, the invitation is still open.
It's still very open.
Yeah, I think Trae Young gets 1 game in Atlanta. I think he can. That being said, I don't think there's any way they get more than 1. So like Suns in 4 or 5 against the Hawks. If Giannis can somehow be a superhero and play at like 70-75%, I think the Bucks can get to 6 games. But I mean, I just don't think there's any way he's going to be healthy enough for them to have a legitimate shot at this point.
Yeah.
Just with how, I mean, like obviously I don't know anything, but like just seeing him walk around the sideline, like he looks bad. He looks really bad. I think Suns honestly in 5 either way. Maybe 6. I've never been a huge believer in Milwaukee just because of their consistency. So I don't know. I really think it's the Suns to lose at this point. I have a hard time believing either team's going to beat them, even if Giannis is able to play.
Yeah, I'd probably say I'm going to say Suns in 6, no matter what.
Okay.
I think that Atlanta's been scrappy enough. I think that they could get a couple games if they can get by Milwaukee, and Milwaukee still has enough talent to win a couple games there. So, but I think the Suns are. I think it's kind of theirs to lose at this point.
Not what I expected coming into the season. If you told me in the
Right.
conference finals, I'd be like,
Yeah.
it's definitely going to be the Suns winning the championship. Not what I expected, but very cool.
At all.
Do you guys know what the odds were for the Suns to win the finals?
That's a good question.
Probably around like what Portland.
Because somebody's
was, I
going
would
to be
assume.
really rich.
I bet that was lower than Portland. I bet it was a lot lower than
Probably,
Portland.
yeah. Well, that's not necessarily.
I mean, they were
true because
projected to
Chris
be a
Paul.
playoff team, right? Were they?
I think so.
Fringe. Yeah.
Like fringe.
Oh, was it fringe? I thought
don't
after
remember.
the bubble and then after getting Chris Paul, I figured they'd
Maybe
be
it was higher.
7 or.
I think you guys were like 4th or 5th seed projected to be.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah.
definitely nobody saw a lot of that improvement coming from those young players.
But yeah, I mean, they were competing for the 1 seed the whole season. So I
Right.
mean that wasn't expected. And then obviously they've really seemed to put it together. Great job by Monty Williams. They all play so well together.
Yeah,
Sure.
They really seem to figure it out.
Yeah, well, those finals, like I mentioned, will get started on Thursday, July 8th on ABC with the GOAT announcer Mike Breen and his little companions, Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson. Thanks, Case, for popping on today and giving us your eternal wisdom. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at YBall Starters, and you can subscribe here on YouTube if that's how you're watching, or if you're listening, drop us a follow on Spotify. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. Have a lovely day.
Peace.
Later.